Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. So lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And tonight I'm talking to Milissa Smit. And we're going to be talking about politics in South Africa. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. Milissa has established her own political party, which we'll be talking about. And yeah, it's always interesting to see the new political parties coming up. I think in 2024 you're going to need probably about 6 feet long piece of paper to actually go through all the parties that are chalking themselves up to stand next year. Alrighty, let's get my guest on, shall we? Here we go.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Milissa. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Excellent, thank you. Excellent. And welcome to Lovey Life TV Live.
Thank you very much. It's a big honor. Thank you very much for asking me to join and be part of this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Now, that's a very interesting wall behind you, and I think that this live stream's been taken from a very interesting part of the house, isn't it?
Yes, my husband was in France. He went to watch the rugby and he came back, and I said, okay, I didn't go with, so I'm going camping this weekend. So we're glamping in Jacobsbaai.
Yeah.
And it's a little rock home with a bathroom behind us and a little pixie garden in the front. So it was either this or a tent, and it's raining. So I think Little Rock House does it for today.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, at least you have your nice break.
Just a breakaway in the nature where there's no rush of traffic, no alarms, no sirens, no smoke. Everything is perfect.
And the lights are working. That's a bonus.
And we've got no lighting. Yeah, well, the government decided, well, there's rugby. They won't have load shedding. How coincidence, eh?
Yeah. Look, this whole thing is a bit sus, but anyway. All right. Now, Milissa, we've never spoken to you before on Loving Life TV, so you're basically what we call new blood. Now, tell us a bit about yourself and your life and your background growing up in South Africa. Tell us a bit about you.
I was born in Edenvale. I grew up there. My dad used to work for the very famous SAA about 39 years.
South African Airways.
Yes, my dad was a flight engineer.
Oh, okay. Please carry on.
Yeah, and then we moved to Keetmanshoop where he was transferred, and we lived there for I think 4 or 5 years. And he was then transferred to George, where I grew up most of my life. I went to school there. I got married, got my kids, and then took a turn. And after my life changed, I went back to Joburg and back to Cape Town again. And I've been in Cape Town for a couple of years now, and I'm following politics for a number of years, and I got involved in it 3 or 4 years ago. So my kids are all grown up. They've all got kids. So I'm a granny. I have 4 little grandkids. And yeah, my 2 boys live in Joburg. They're both art tradesmen there. My daughter lives in Cape Town and she's got 2 kids. So yeah, and my partner's got his business in Cape Town. But I've been following politics for the last couple of years, and which was very interesting is how people get neglected. When you're in politics, people seem to go for the name and tags and all the fame and salary, and you forget about the citizens who left behind. I started that for the
before we get into that, Milissa, I'm just a bit dumbstruck because you said you're a granny. You don't look a day over 40.
I'm 54.
God.
I was born in 69.
Good genes, that's for sure. Wow, good genes. Okay.
A little bit, let me give you some background. My real biological dad was Nick van Wyk. So his nephew, Basie van Wyk, played Springbok rugby in 64.
Okay. So you'd be very interested in the World Cup final tomorrow night.
Yes, definitely. And my dad also started something fishy in South Africa many moons ago.
Something fishy, I've heard. That's a restaurant, isn't it?
That was a restaurant, which is not trading anymore. But and then my mom divorced and I had got a new dad. That's my dad, my grootmaakpa, as we could call it in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
And he worked for SA and taught me quite a lot about humanity and caring and just being a humble person and never take anything for granted that you have.
Yeah. And I have to say that when I think of South African Airways, I think of just why everything is so wrong under the ANC. I remember flying SAA back in the 80s and the 90s, and it was the safest, best airline in the world at that time. And look what they did to it. Look what they did to it.
And always well dressed, and the crew were nice and everything else.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Now, okay, Milissa, you grew up then. I didn't realize that you grew up under the apartheid government. I thought you would have, probably been in your mother's arms when 1994 came around. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So tell me about how you've seen life in South Africa change pre and post 1994.
Yeah, you see, most of the people after 94 don't realize what happened before that. And because of the people set a mark and set a stamp on the previous pro 1994, everybody just keeps on going up on that train. They don't get off. So it's like when you go to a grocery store and you remember Chappies was in the one aisle and now it's moved. You'll never go back because you keep on looking for it in the past. The people need to change. The people's vision needs to be different. If you read Ephesians 6, verse 12, it says, if I can read it, for the wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual weakness in high places. So in the Bible it says, it's not about skin color, it's not about what race you are. There's one nation. People need to stand together. No matter what happened before 1994, move on. It's gone away. It's washed away with the sea. So start over. Start focusing on the problems that they are, which are just growing and growing, and they're not getting better. No one has a solution. Everybody comes up and says, oh, we got a solution, and they get dragged down the mud again.
Well, I've got a very, very simple solution for South Africa. Two things. I'm sure they're in your policies. One is meritocracy, which is the best person for the best job. the best
Exactly.
person, no ANC cadres. And the second one is
Yes.
treat corruption like murder. If an elected official is corrupt, you throw him behind bars for 20 years. No questions asked. And
And
that way,
exactly.
you cut out corruption, bang, like that. And that's exactly what Singapore did, you know. Singapore is today
Exactly.
one of the finest countries in the world, but it was like South Africa back in the 1960s, 1970s. But they brought in meritocracy and what I said about corruption. Now, okay, just moving on. So your concern, you obviously come from a very biblical perspective when we talk about your view with politics. And I'm of the view
Yes.
that right now in this world today we are fighting a spiritual battle. It's not Israel fighting Gaza or Russia fighting Ukraine. I believe there's a higher spiritual war going on in the world today. What are your thoughts on that?
I also believe it's exactly what you say. People need to go back to what the Bible says. You can't. I've got this philosophy. You can't tear out a page in the Bible and go and do something in the world and then want to put the page back in the Bible tomorrow. Bible's been written many moons ago, ages ago, and everything in there is valid. It's legit. It's true. You can't change it.
Yeah.
So why would you want to change something which works, which is so sacred and holy? God gave it to you for a reason. You need to read the Bible and need to understand what He's telling you to do.
Mm.
You can't do this to suit the people's needs. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah, and that's why all the criminal and justice systems are so crooked and so stuffed up, if I can use it that word. Nothing works.
yeah.
They just bend the rules to suit themselves.
Right. Now, Marlena, who you know, has asked in the
Yes.
side chat, she says, please ask Milissa if they are at the Pixie and Fairy Village in Jacobs Bay. If so, I know the owner's daughter very well.
Yes, we are here. Yes,
Well,
we
there
are
you
here.
go. It's a small world.
Yes,
Okay.
Marlena, we're here. It's a small world, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Melissa, what drew you to politics? What was your motivation?
I started about 2.5 years ago when I saw a certain person approaching a school where there was a riot. And it intrigued me to see how people can stand together in a small little community. And I sent an email and I kept on sending an email to say, I want to get involved, I want to get involved. And so I got involved, and I'll rather not name the political party at the moment, just to be decent. Then I started with social welfare development and just starting to take care of people, people who needed wheelchairs, people who needed ramps when they had no legs to come out of their flat, people who needed clothes, people who needed vegetables and food. And that just inspired me so much, and it just grew. The platform just grew so big that my Facebook actually exploded of people asking for help. No one asks for money. People just needed help. And you know what was very interesting is I had a motto or a verse that I wrote. If I can put a smile on one person's face every day with no cost, that would make me happy. Why would you put a smile on someone's face with $1 or a monetary value if you can do it for free? You know, people just need to have a shoulder to come to and cry on and say, I had a terrible day. I've got problems. Please help me. Can you please listen? That's the problem. People don't listen anymore. The way that you treat people and the way that you talk to people is very important, especially in this country. Everybody, you breathe the same air, you bleed the same blood, go to grave to the same, you return to dust, you come into this world the same. So everybody is one. Why do you have to differentiate about race and color and religion? It's not fair. People need to stand up and think about humanity. Everything is about humanity in this country, and that's gone down the drain. People forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, I've got a very simple question to ask you, and that is, would you take this philosophy into politics? And the reason I'm asking that question is because if you look at the United States, for example, they are throwing hundreds of billions of dollars into the military-industrial complex to fund Ukraine and Israel in these wars. And yet, if you look at the middle class to poor population in America, they're living on the streets, they're getting no support. A lot of them are on drugs. And the American US government, which is the wealthiest government in the world, is basically ignoring them, their own people, while lavishing all this money on wars. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, it doesn't make any sense at all. And as you know, Dr. Muntz, you had him on a live. I'm part of his executive team, and what we stand for, he's had so many years of research and library full of evidence, and we are going to use that. People are standing up. They're starting to realize what we are and what we can bring to this country, and they are ready for a change. It's now time. We need to stand up and bring that change. We can't just keep on documenting, and just focusing on the people coming in the front, and there's no political party that's got a reasonable view and will implement it. We just need to hit it with a bang and just put it out there and show the people this is what we got, this is what we're going to change. And it's going to take a time. We'll never change it within 24 hours. The justice system is so messed up. The Constitution, if that can be rewritten, that would be amazing. But we need to start our people's sport now. It's time. The people are depending on us to bring that change.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just look at the world today, and I think that humanity has been screwed up. I really do. I think that the satanic powers that are now running, you know,
Exactly.
the halls of power, bringing in things like what do they call it? Comprehensive sex education, you know, to kids as young as 5 years old.
That is just implemented. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
these sort of things are just evil. I mean, you don't do that's child abuse. Saying to a little boy, "Oh, do you know you might be a little girl? And if you think you're a little girl, we can put you on these little gene stoppers or blockers, which means that you can then become a little girl." I mean, this is just sick.
It's sickening how you can influence a child from small, and they want to take the rights away from the parents. So who gave them the right to take the parents' right away? God gave that child to the parents to bring up, not to give it to someone else. And how can you change God's creation? You're not a factory. God didn't create factories. He created human beings.
Yeah.
So the work available is a big mess, and I don't think the education is going to last for that. It's going to mess up the education system, the values of the children. They're going to be brought up. There's corruption now. The education system is going to go. Yes.
I've just had Brett try and call me, so I'm just going to see if, because Brett's your VP, so I'll see if I can bring him into the conversation. Let me just see. Okay.
It would be amazing.
Yeah, Brett. Okay. There he is. Okay, I'm going to call him into the conversation. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
He just tried to contact me.
Yeah.
Let's just see if he's got the message. Okay, just while we're waiting for Brett to join us. Oh, here we go. He's in. Hi, Brett.
Hey, how are you, man?
Excellent, buddy. Excellent. Can you turn your camera on?
I'll be honest with you. I've got 2% on my phone.
Oh, okay. All right. You obviously know Milissa. Say hello to Milissa.
Hi, Brett.
Yeah, how's Milissa? How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Okay, now with your 2%, give us some quick points about this new party, the party called Change South Africa.
Yeah, you know, it's got the first and primary action that I get from people is, but there's so many parties already. You know, aren't we diluting the opposition? Aren't we diluting, for instance, the DA, etc.? And my response to that is quite unequivocal. There's about 28 million registered voters in South Africa, and 10 million in the last general election decided not to go and vote. we have to ask ourselves why. If you look at a menu and you don't like what's on the menu, you don't order. So if
Exactly.
there's a party on the ballot that doesn't appeal to you, you don't. You just stay at home and have a braai and hope for the best. And in the last local government election, it was even worse. We had a turnout of 11 million, lowest ever in our history, which is shocking. And people just not interested. So, we're saying we want to give the electorate, another option, another alternative. We want those 10 to 13 million that are not registered. We want to give them a reason to come out and register. So we've got 23 million people that are not giving their vote to the existing, conglomerate of parties. So don't tell us as a change essay, oh, why are you coming into the fray because there's too many. There's too many, but they're doing nothing, or not doing enough, should I say?
Yeah. Okay. And what are the major reasons that you got involved in politics, Brett?
Look, I from the age of about 10, I grew up in 2 orphanages. By the time I was 18, I spent 15 years in 2 orphanages. I remember going on a school outing to Parliament, 1980. I was 10 years old, and I stood in the National Assembly, the House of Assembly, and I actually remember putting my hand on that beautiful wooden carved finishings and that thick pile carpeting, and I said to myself, I want to be here one day, And I got the opportunity. I've known Neil 30 years. I got the opportunity when I was national election coordinator for the UIM. I had to coordinate that election nationally with no budget, absolutely zero budget. We had registered as a party in August. We were in the elections in November, and we came 23rd in the country, 11th in the city of Cape Town, 17th in the province out of 100. And I think for a party that didn't have an electoral budget and it was so new, I don't think we did too badly, And for personal reasons, I mean, Neil and I, we're still friends. We buried the hatchet. I resigned for personal reasons, but that desire in my heart to be, we're at a precipice right now. We've got the ANC having gotten 45%. In 221, we've got Action SA coming in, we've got Boza coming in, we've got the PA growing. We've got an amazing opportunity now as a collective to actually vote in a non-ANC president and start bringing in real change as the true rainbow nation that Nelson Mandela envisaged. The rainbow has multiple colors. It doesn't only have one color. And unfortunately, I'm not here to knock any other parties, but you've been given an opportunity for 30 years to bring change from the apartheid era, and you actually take the country backwards, then you fail dismally. And, it's unfortunate that Nelson Mandela is not alive today to see his Rainbow Nation actually give birth now. Because, let's face it, after the elections, you're going to have, Action SA, DA, etc., IFP, that will have arguably the balance of power, and they're going to have to work together, and they're going to have to bring that rainbow collective together for the people of South Africa, and we want to be part of that. We don't want to necessarily take votes away from existing parties. Obviously, that does happen, but that's not our primary motivation. Our motivation primarily is to get those 23 million that don't want to register and vote for whatever reason, and the majority of them are aged under 30. They weren't even born in 1994, and we want to give them the opportunity to give us a chance and to come out and vote and have a reason to vote.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the ACDP and Neil de Beer. I'll come back to Neil de Beer in a second, but it's interesting because I spoke to the leader of the ACDP a few months ago, and he said there's no way on earth that he would join the DA's multi-party coalition or Moonshot Pact, and a few weeks later he changed his mind and joined them. Now I have actually raised this with Milissa, so I'll put this question to Milissa later. But it's interesting in politics what's happening today in South Africa, and one of the most charismatic speakers in politics in South Africa today is clearly Neil de Beer. I mean, he can talk to anyone. He can talk the leather off a shoe. I mean, he just doesn't stop once he gets started.
Yeah, well, look, Neil, I don't know if you know that when he was younger, he actually studied drama. He did acting. He studied drama at university. So he's got a theatrical background, and he loves watching old classical movies, especially with like Winston Churchill and so forth. So he's kind of modeled. He's kind of almost character developed himself into this sort of persona. I think a lot of it, yes, does come from who he is as too. Let's give him credit. But he's a great orator. He has a good vocal voice, and he's an intelligent man. And he has been on both sides of the fence. So it didn't work for him with the ANC. He was on a list. I think he was 200 and something on a list when he just missed out on the cut because the ANC didn't do well that year. And he's always wanted to be in Parliament, not a councillor. That was a stepping stone. He wanted to be in Parliament, and I believe that even if the UIM don't get the required votes, which I think they might, but even if they don't get the votes to get the one seat, which is about 45,000 votes, I think that Steenhuisen, you can see in one of the videos, Steenhuisen standing behind him and putting his hand on his shoulder. You'd think he's in the DA. So I think that Neil has definitely got a seat secured either way, whether it's through his own votes or whether it's through the DA saying, you know what, thank you for putting your faith in the fact when it counted, here's our reward. You can have an honorary seat. I mean, he sits on the Security Council here in Cape Town, so he's very cleverly maneuvering his way like a chess player, which that's politics,
Yeah. Well, look, he certainly is a breath of fresh air when you compare him to someone like Ramaphosa, who's...
We call him. Look, I mean, yeah.
No,
but
okay, I guess you must be just about out of juice now with your phone.
Yeah, it's still hanging on. I've got it packed up to my power bank, but it's kind of like sustaining. I just want to come back to the question on the ACDP, the reference there. You got to understand this fact is evolving. It's metamorphosizing. And don't think that the 8 that's there now is the beginning and end. I think this is the foundation. I think once we get closer to the elections and the polls are coming out, and especially once the votes are cast and people can see who's got what, there's going to be a lot of maneuvering. And I think you're going to be very surprised at some of the decision making. I think there's a lot of parties that are kind of neutral and on the fence on this one, but I think when they see, hold on a second, we need X percentage points, we've got X, they've got Y, let's talk, we can put this together. They don't have to be bedfellows. The ACDP, is quite conservative in their outlook, and they're not into the whole LGBTQT whatever thing, but at the same time, it means they have to cooperate with an amalgamation to have a non-ANC government. It's a compromise. One party is going to do it on their own. So they realize, yes, we don't have to agree. We don't have to agree with what the other parties are saying, but we'll put our votes with them because our 2% or our 3% will get us closer to the threshold. The same with the PA. I believe, and I have spoken to Gayton personally on numerous occasions, and I do believe that he is going to surprise because I think the PA is going to do really well. People are underestimating them. They're mobilizing like crazy. They're an effective party. They're like I said, breath of fresh air. I think he's too. The DA criticizes him because he's an ex-criminal and whatever the case. Come on, how many criminals aren't in Parliament at the moment? And he at least tells you who and what he is, and he has done more practically on the ground in his constituency than most politicians have done in the last 30 years. So give the man some credit, give him his due, and I believe South Africa needs a Gayton McKenzie, a reformed Gayton McKenzie. I mean, Rob Herzog thinks the world of him. Okay, and maybe some people don't take Rob's opinion very, very highly, but he's a very corporate, well-educated man, a lot of influence, and 10 years ago, if you had thought someone in that stature would be supporting someone like Gayton, you'd think it's unthinkable, but it's evolved to that. And I believe that the PA, if they throw their weight in with the pact and don't write that one off yet, it could tilt the scale. It could tilt it either way, ANC, EFF favour or pact favour. And the PA is going to be very much a kingmaker in the National Assembly when it comes to voting in the next president.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the ANC, I can't see them getting 50% of the vote. I think the big surprise in next year's election will be the ANC getting less than 40% of the vote. I think they're going to drop dramatically because
100%.
when I talk to the African population, they're gat full. They've had enough of the ANC, and it's only the rusted on ones who are going to stick with them.
I'll tell you why, for two reasons why. And I called the ANC at 45% in the 221 election, before the election. I called it to the number. And I'll tell you why I think the ANC is going to do horribly. The number of factors. One is mortality. Their natural voter supporter base from 1994 has been middle-aged and older rural voters. That's been their power base. And we've had 30 years of elections. We're now coming up to our fifth year rollover. So every 5 years, the older, imagine a triangle, the lower age groups at the bottom making up the masses, and as you go up the age strata, the numbers dwindle. So every 5 years, you get the older people physically dying out of the electorate, and then you have a whole layer of 13 to 18-year-olds that now turn 18 and are 23 coming in. So you have almost like a roll out and a roll in. And after 30 years, the ANC's support base has naturally dwindled due to mortality. They're not bringing in enough younger people. The older people are dying out. The younger people are not buying into their rhetoric and their style of governance and their failure. And then that's number one. Number two, they're also losing support through bad governance. So that's the second factor. And number three, the most important one that most people are overlooking is the statistical factor. We have 17 million people vote in 2019 with the Action SA coming in, with the PA coming in, Bozen among others. They're not just going to take votes away from existing parties. They are going to bring votes in from their dormancy, from the non-voter, from the non-registered who will register. Because the Action SA is not just a steal party. They're not coming to take from other parties to make a new party. Yes, they will take votes from the ANC. Yes, they will take votes from the DA. But they have given South Africa a reason. In the last elections, they got over 600,000 votes. They were only a party for, I think, 2 months. Their name wasn't on the ballot because of the fact that they didn't put the abbreviation in when they submitted their papers to the IEC. So they were not allowed to have a name on the ballot. All they had was a symbol. And they still managed to get over 600,000 votes. And they only contested a handful of metros. Imagine now with the name on the ballot, they've had 2 years to politic and to be in the arena and to have a proper go at it at a national level. I think the PA, so Action SA is going to bring in at least 2 million votes. At least 2 million votes. And that would put them at 10%.
Wow.
So with those new votes coming in, I think they'll draw between 1 and 1.5 million new votes. The PA will bring in new votes. Yes, they'll take from the DA and from the ANC, but they'll bring in new votes. And so will Boza, and so will the UIM, and so forth and so forth. And I think we'll have, I'd say, 3 million new votes. So we could have, if we have the same turnout as before, 17 million, add the new fresh blood, you've got a 20 million turnout. It naturally dilutes the EFF and ANC percentage because it's now factored against a greater pool.
Yeah.
And people are, whenever they're doing polls and calculations, they're basing it on a 17.5 million equation. It's going to be a bigger equation. There's going to be new votes coming in, and that is going to be the key.
Yeah.
That's going to dilute. So, yes, if the ANC gets 35% and the EFF gets 12%, that's 47. Can you see how close we're going to get here? It's going to come down to single digits,
yeah.
And it's going to take a PA, a Boza, and an Action SA. Those three parties are going to be a key. Look, they're already part of the pact, but the PA is not there. But Robbie's speaking to him, Corney's speaking to him. He's just offended because the DA treats him terribly. Helen wouldn't shake his hand when she met him. They still call him a criminal. And I have personally messaged certain leaders in the DA very high up and said to them, you guys are so short-sighted, you are killing the chance of us getting a 51% vote in the National Assembly by ostracizing the PA. I'm seeing it now already because God has gifted me with a statistical analytical brain, and I'm telling you now, them ostracizing the PA is going to cost them getting a non-ANC president into this country.
Right. Now look, I've got a lot of people saying, Brett, can you just put your camera on for a second? So Are you able to just show your face? And I'm going to put the next question to Milissa. Milissa, let's say the ANC get, say, 40%, and the two big parties, the DA and the EFF, get over 10%, which means that if the ANC actually forms a coalition with either of those, they're going to be the party that runs South Africa, or the coalition that runs South Africa. Which political party do you think that the ANC would pick, the EFF or the DA, and why?
Well, they will definitely choose the DA, in my opinion, definitely. The DA's followers are much huger than the EFF. I don't think the EFF, it's 50-50. They might go with the EFF, but with the DA having the moonshot pack and all the people going with them at the moment, I think the DA is a larger possibility for them to choose. They're very well known. They actually work in the municipal areas where they are. They function, what they do, they get done. EFF does not have that much support. I mean, they don't even run a municipality. They've got no control in non-municipalities. DA is much better than them. And I think the ANC will try to hold on and get into bed with DA. If it's already been signed, I wouldn't be surprised, but I think it will be the DA.
Right. Now, Brett, if let's take the case of two scenarios. If the ANC were to side with the EFF, that would be a disaster for South Africa, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would if they got above 51, but I think all those permutations and everything I've shared with you, that's not a foregone conclusion either. The ANC-EFF amalgam coming together might not even give them 51%. That's a very real possibility as well. We mustn't rule that out.
Yeah.
And I don't think the ANC-DA coalition is me personally. If you ask me on a scale of 0 to 10, what I think is the likelihood, I wouldn't venture past the 2, because the DA majority of their supporters, if the DA got into a coalition with the EFF, it would signal the death of the DA. The DA would lose its support to the likes of the Freedom Front, the PA, Action SA, Boza, etc., etc., etc. They would crumble. They would absolutely crumble, because you see how angry the DA voters are already with Alan for not calling a referendum when constitutionally we're entitled to it, and he's already, and I understand why he's not doing it, because he's got to contest the national election next year. So you can't be talking fragmentation and polarization, 6 months.
I think we've lost Brett. Okay, so
Yeah.
what we're talking about there, Milissa, is basically secession in the Western Cape. What are your views on secession in the Western Cape?
I wouldn't stand for it. I don't believe in it, because the country is one nation. We need to stand together. You can't have half the country floating to the one side and the rest of the country to the top. The country is one. We need to stand together as one. If you have a secession and you're going to have the Western Cape to just go on their own, it's going to cause so much diversion. There's going to be so much hatred, and people are going to get in uproar. There's going to be more corruption. I can tell you that it's not going to work. Yes, a lot of people want that just to get away from the ANC. It's not going to work. The people need to stand together. They need to put their differences aside to make the necessary changes for the constitution. Their break left. We must address the inadequacies and the flaws and that we've been exposed to for over the years. Our constitution must reflect the values and needs of our diverse society. We can't do it on our own. You can't just have half the country trying to save what's left of it. Through constitutional change, we can ensure that our government is truly representative of all our citizens, regardless of the race, gender, and economic status. We can build a more resilient and sustainable democracy that puts people first and empowers them to attain their full potential. You can't do that with just half the country.
Right. Now, I just want to share with people now your logo, and I want you to explain how you came up with this
Yes.
logo for Change SA. There it is. It's a fingerprint.
Yes. The fingerprint came on because you get one fingerprint from God. You create it with a unique fingerprint. So we thought of the fingerprint. It's unique to one person. Only one person can vote for one person. The Change SA is definitely bringing change to South Africa. And we wanted a name that was striking and that was very high up on the ballot paper and that people could recognize and remember. And it's striking. We love the logo. The colors is plain and simple. It's unique.
Yeah.
No one has ever thought about something like that.
Well, I actually think it's an act of genius because the wider African population will relate to the fingerprint because in most things they use their fingerprint for documents and for when they withdraw money from the bank and all those sort of things. So it's something they can relate to.
Exactly. Yes. And it's unique. You can't change it. And we want to bring the change.
Yeah.
Together we can create South Africa that's truly exceptional, the nation that will uphold ideas, freedom, human dignity, and we have to act now. The change is here. The time is there. Just before elections, people need to see that we need your fingerprint. We're not saying vote for us. We need all those non-voters to go and register and vote. So your vote makes a difference. We don't vote for the ANC, don't vote for the EFF, but we're not telling you to vote for us as a party. We just need people to register so the country can have voters that count.
Okay, now I've got a question here from Andre Beerter, and he says,
where I live now.
he says, my question to Milissa, does Melissa's new party support a referendum on Cape independence, which I think you've answered, but he then said after you replied to our discussion, if this is a democratic country and the Western Cape has its own constitution and 68% of registered voters in the Western Cape want a referendum, should it not be given?
I suppose it could be given if it will be allowed. If those people, how are they going to cooperate on their own? How are they going to be different than South Africa, the rest of the country? What are they going to achieve? You must remember, if they want independent Western Cape, everything changes. The rules, the constitution, everything. It's just going to make it more diverse. You don't want a diverse nation. You want one single nation standing together with everything. Vote together for the same change. They all want freedom. They all want the ANC to go. They all want corruption to stop. They all want the cadre deployment to stop.
What about a federalist type format? Because what the DA have been asking for is where certain arms of government at a national level should be broken into basically a provincial level. And I think the one that they were really, really trying to lobby for was the police. They were very unhappy with the National South African Police Service because of Bekisele and, you know, the complete corruption taking place in there. And the DA's view in the Western Cape, as I understand it, is that if they establish their own police force, you know, independently of a wider national police service, it would be run a lot better and they would get rid of crime.
Well, why would you only want the Western Cape to get rid of crime? What is wrong with the rest of the country? They also
nothing.
want the same?
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the rest of the country. I'm just saying that if that model worked in the Western Cape, then you'd find other provinces saying, we want that as well. But at the moment, with Bekisele and this bullshit with the ANC, you know, the cops more often than not are involved in the mafia gangs roaming the country.
Exactly. Look at all the whistleblowers now. They get taken out one by one. Why? Because they're exposing the corrupt government. The police is one that's so corrupt that the people are hiding. They're not even safe in hiding. Where do you run to? You've got nowhere to run if you're a whistleblower even.
Yeah.
The justice system is corrupt. You can't even go there because they don't even get convicted. I've got a lady that lives a few blocks away from me in Kraaifontein, Anthea. A little boy of 9 years old was shot. They went to court for 3 years. They were not even convicted. But she's got the evidence. The file is there. The ballistics were done. It's not fair. No system works. Nothing in the country works. They just don't care about the constitution that says justice needs to be there. Criminals need to be convicted. Why can't they just stick to what's right and wrong?
Yeah. Okay. Now, WF has said there is no party to vote for. Milissa, what is your stance regarding LGBTQ+++? We've run out of acronyms now. Same-sex marriage, abortions, etc.
I don't approve of that. My biblical principles, again, don't agree with it. I will not discriminate. It's not my place. It's not my platform to say anything negative towards them. God is the only one that can judge, but I will not approve of it. It's wrong. Again, you mess with God's creation. If God wanted that, he would make that instead of Adam and Eve. I feel it's wrong. I don't feel to implement that in schools, to start from a small childhood phase, tell the kids that's how it's supposed to be, to brainwash them. It's wrong. It's very difficult in this country because there are so many of them. Society has accepted it. Churches have accepted it. They can get married. Satanism is another platform where people are asking me, do I approve of it? No, I don't. I will never approve of it. I can't go along with it. I can't do God's work, which He's asked me to do, and approve what's wrong. You have to step the right way. You can't have your foot on both sides of the line. It doesn't work that way.
What happened to the Christian countries around the world? I mean, I think of countries like Australia, like Canada, like the United States of America, like South Africa. They have all moved towards a very satanic agenda, haven't they? And it seems to be run by these foundations like the Open Society Foundation, who are funding groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all these basically rebellious groups that are pushing for the woke society. What are your views on that?
Yeah. Again, if you see where it all started with the Satanistic group, comes from Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, the underground office, I call it the underground office, that's where it all starts. And it all moves into the political parties with hidden agendas. And as I know, there was a Satanistic church approved in South Africa, and I think there's one in Cape Town as well. So why would the ruling parties approve of that? It's just, again, I will keep on saying it, it's wrong. I will never approve of it. I cannot see a country or an area work where people like those are involved in your area or in your portfolio. It doesn't approve, God doesn't approve of it. Why would you get people involved in those rituals and believe you will never be blessed? You will never achieve what you're supposed to achieve if you believe in that or you are part of that. I don't say they are bad people, they don't have personalities, they don't love, and it's different. I stick to my biblical principles. I will not move away from that. God wanted that, He would have made it. And in our constitution, it's diverse. There's no set rules. They keep on changing it. So even if you say it's wrong, they will keep on changing it to suit the constitution or the country. It's the whole world's gone mad, if you can call it that way. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. I see that Brett is trying to join us, but then fell off the truck again. Yeah. But look, yeah, I know that you've got to get going in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to. Here he is. Hi, Brett. How are you? Now we can see you.
You won't believe it. I'm actually in the middle of the CBD I went and found a Pakistani shop and bought the fastest charger that I could get. I said, give me the best thing that you have. And I got my phone back on that. Yeah, that's the kind of motivation I'll bring to my electorate.
Good on you.
I'm a doer.
Cool.
I'm a doer.
It looks like
Yes,
it's...
I see, we need to work towards a political change and transcend traditional power struggle. So this was a struggle for you, and you did it.
Yes.
Right. Now, guys, I'm going to be wrapping up this live stream shortly because I know Melissa's got to get to a meeting. But Brett, while we've got you here, is there a message you would like to give South Africa?
Very much so. For 30 years, South Africans of all race groups have been complaining and moaning about the governance here, load shedding, the state-owned entities crushing state capture, high unemployment rates, the price of food, I mean, the list goes on. We've all been moaning about it and saying, oh, but it's the government. Well, you know what? Change the blinking government. And how do you do that? You vote. And you go and register, and you come out and vote next year between May and August when they declare the dates. We are at the precipice in the political history of this country where when we sniffed blood in 221, the ANC getting 45%, and it's even worse now, and we've got new parties coming in, and it's up to us. It's up to us as South Africans to come out in numbers. I'm not telling people vote change. I'm saying vote for any one of the pact members. Obviously, vote for us. That's first and foremost. But if you feel you don't relate to us or whatever, then I'm encouraging you to just come out and register and vote for any party that's going to stand against the ANC, and that we can get that 51% in the National Assembly. It's almost a given that we'll run Western Cape, KZN, and Gauteng. Very good chance that collectively the opposition will run those three provinces, 80% of our economy anyway. But we need a non-ANC president so that South Africa can see for the next 5 years what this country can actually do. We were the powerhouse of Africa, the greatest GDP. Our GDP went negative under the Zuma administration for the first time in ever. So, guys, come out and vote. Come out and register. This is your time. This is your chance. Put your vote where your mouth is and stop talking and moaning and do something about it.
Right. Now, while you were off, we were having a bit of a discussion about secession in the Cape and what the options are there. And I was saying that I know the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape under Alan Wind are very anti-secession and are basically saying we're not going to have a referendum. But what they are talking about is trying to set up a provincial police service. In other words, break away from the national South African police service. What are your thoughts about that?
Okay. Personally, I'm a 53-year-old male born in this country with Portuguese ancestry. I can leave tomorrow. I'm still here. I have 4 children, aged between the ages of 5 and 19 in this country, and I believe in this country's future. I would like to see South Africa healed, South Africa changed as a country. We have family and relatives, all of us, all over the country. It doesn't help to fix one portion of it, but here's the big but. If the ANC somehow managed to form coalitions of splinter groups and the EFF and so forth and stay in power and continue with what they've been doing for the last 30 years, for the next 5 and maybe the next 10 and so forth, then it's secession. And I don't want to talk secession before a general election, but I'm a very honest and open person, and I'll tell you, if it means that we save the Western Cape and we say to the rest of the country, if you're not happy with the way the ANC is governing the country, come to the Western Cape and then let's preserve this part of and not an Oranje state, a province. If you look at the geographical size of the Western Cape, it's bigger than just about any country in Europe. There's so much potential here, okay? And anybody, regardless of color and etc., can come to the Western Cape and make a new life here, and at least let's save a part of South Africa, and let's give South Africans an opportunity to have the South Africa we wanted nationally, within this province if we can't get it right in 224. There's no point sinking the entire country because the ANC looks at the Western Cape as the second biggest tax contributor. That's the only reason why they're holding on to us, because of the fiscus. And unfortunately, what they've done in the rest of the country, the Western Cape has been able to reasonably insulate itself because it has a DA governance. But can you imagine if we had complete autonomy, what this province would do? What foreign investment would come in here? How we'll be able to uplift, or even our townships. I mean, I work in the townships. Nothing would give me greater joy than to see the shacks being torn down and houses being built and jobs being created. And it can be done. But unfortunately, we've been blocked and stopped by the cabal at the top in Pretoria. I think we all know what I'm referring to.
Yeah. Right. Now, okay, so as we move to 2024 and with the Moon Pact and with all this political uncertainty, it's going to be a very, very interesting time in South African politics. There's no question about that. And, I have spoken to the Spectrum National Party, or it's a Spectrum National Party? The SNP, anyway. I've spoken to the ACDP leadership. I've spoken to a lot of the smaller parties' political leadership. And they all have this common vision of getting South Africa out of the crap. And just to Brett's point, I reckon that if the ANC were booted out, if black economic empowerment and other racist employment laws were shafted, were thrown out, I think you'd have a huge amount of expat South Africans returning to the country. I have no question about that.
100%. In fact,
yeah, go ahead, Brett.
In fact, to qualify that statement, Rob has mentioned openly on public numerous occasions. I mean, he has a very strong footprint overseas. And with the recent development in the Constitutional Court where South Africans living abroad can now vote, that in itself is going to make a huge difference. It's going to bring in a lot of votes into the DA primarily. And Rob has said there's many, many very wealthy South Africans that are living abroad that would love to come back to South Africa and invest here and rebuild this country if the right government is in place. And you just got to look at foreign investment. I mean, 80% of foreign investment coming into South Africa comes into the Western Cape. That tells you something. Why is it that foreign investors don't want to? I mean, Johannesburg used to be far ahead of the Western Cape in terms of economy and as a capital attractor. But the Western Cape, a lot of companies are setting up their head offices here, domestic and international. The foreign investment is coming here. The population in the Western, in the greater city of Cape Town has grown from 4.7 million to over 7 million in the last few years. So, we have people flocking here because they're running away from the decay in the rest of South Africa. And, it speaks for itself. And that's not a racist statement. I've always said, even when I was in the UIM and I do my lives, I always said to my listeners, I will try and keep my discussions, my viewpoints, as close as possible to statistical facts. I'm a firm believer of science and statistics. It doesn't matter if your hair is purple, your eyes are green, and you wear purple and a pink shoe. If something is a statistical fact, it's a fact. It doesn't matter where you come from and how you want to paint it. And I try and rely on facts when I make arguments or when I share with my listener or my public. I try and educate them and not give them necessarily my views. Yes, I do have views, but I try very much because I have that sort of teacher instinct in me. I've taught karate for more than 30 years, mostly young kids. So I have very much a teaching personality. I love imparting knowledge because I know a lot of people don't necessarily go out and seek that knowledge, so they're misinformed, and misinformation is dangerous. If you can inform your public, and Milissa will tell you, when I used to do my lives at the UIM, that's the one thing that the public loved about me, and I say this very humbly, was the fact that I would always bring new facts and interesting things to the table and open their eyes and open their awareness. And that's what we ultimately need to do. If you went to a shopping mall and asked people, how much did the ANC get? How much did they poll in 221? How many would actually know they got below 50%? How many? And I think if more people knew that, if we encourage them to vote in 224 to bring them below 50 and 40% in the general election where it really counts.
Now, I've got a question here for Milissa. Inspector says, does Milissa have a part in opposing the World Health Organization power grab? The DA is not in charge of South Africa, but would prefer that to secession, hence a multi-party approach. And I just want to also add to this point that the Democratic Alliance have been given a huge donation by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This happened last year. I think it was 80 million rand. And following that, Alan Wines started pushing the bioweapon for children in schools in the Cape, in the Western Cape. And that to me is a very, very it's not a good outcome for the citizens of the Western Cape. So getting back to the point, Milissa, what do you say about the WHO?
Well, this world order, it's very interesting. It's an interesting fact, and assuming that politics are very new to me, it's a crucial point to answer. And all I'll rather just say is we need to work together towards creating a society to build the principles of equality, and we need to hold the leaders accountable and demand they prioritize people. And the Constitution is not working. It's never worked. We need to sort that out. And agreeing with Brett with statistics and stuff, it's very difficult just to have half of the country vote. Voters need to get on and vote. We can't do this on our own. If all the people just vote for a different political party except the ANC or the EFF, we'll definitely get to the top. When I went now to go and get signatures for the party, we needed 1,000 signatures, and I actually walked from shop to shop, and it's amazing to see how many people don't vote or are not interested in voting anymore. They just given up. They just backed off. The country can't do that. We need to have their support.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to put the same question to you, Brett. What do you say about the WHO?
I think I've been supporting the DA intrinsically since the days of the PFP, the Progressive Federal Party, and I started voting in '88. And that whole evolution from the PFP to the Democratic Party, I was always a DPDA person. And I must be honest with you, I was very disappointed, especially in the whole referendum thing, but then also the way during COVID, the way that the DA cozied up to, that whole cabal that's pro, pro-vaccine and pro-World Health Order control and so forth. I'm anti that.
Yeah,
I'm very much against that. And I think that is going to, this election is going to be very interesting. Look, I'm a stats guy, so I'd like the DA to do well, not because I care, but because I want the coalition, or I want the pact to unseat the ANC. And if we have a weak DA, unfortunately, it's not going to help us in terms of the pact. And I believe once we have the pact, the DA will be held accountable by the likes of Gayton, because I do believe Gayton's going to be on the other side. You can make a note of that, and we'll see in 224. And Action SA, especially, Herman will hold him accountable, and so will Michael Beaumont, and so forth and so forth. So, but they are going to lose a certain amount of their votes. Yes, they will gain votes as well, and they will gain from the black electorate, but they're going to lose mainstream votes from white, coloured, and Indian primarily, and very progressive black supporters to the likes of Action SA and the PA and so forth, because of their stance on the WHO and the vaccines and so forth. They've actually, I think, surprised a lot of DA supporters. I said, oh my word, we didn't expect that from the DA. And it's alienated them from a lot of their electorate.
Yeah.
We'll only see to what extent in 224. That might be nullified by new support that they'll bring in for a whole host of other reasons. So the DA might be a party. I don't see them growing, from a 23% party to a 30. It would be nice for the PAC if that happened, but I think they're going to nullify a lot of their growth by some of the bad decisions they've made, and the newer parties offering better options and taking from their support. And you know what? At the end of the day, as long as the PAC gains the support and grows as a whole, if the DA goes to 17 or 18%, but let's call it that 8% goes to the PA and Action, as long as it's retained and it's not lost, and those voters don't go sit at home because they despond and they say, I'm not going to vote DA, but I'm going to give my vote to Herman, or I'm going to give it to Gayton. As long as we retain it in the non-ANC pool, I'm happy with that.
Right. Okay. Look, Milissa, I know that you've got another meeting to get to, so I'm going to respect that and wrap up this live stream. But look, it's been great talking to you and Brett. And just in wrapping up this live stream, what would you like to say, Milissa?
I would say we would need to hold the leaders accountable and demand that they prioritize the people's welfare and while they're making decisions. And it's also crucial that we support and fund movements that are fighting for social justice and equality and democracy. And in conclusion, political change is not just the matter of who holds the reins and the power, but it's about transforming existing systems that limit our potential as a society. We must also work together, and we need to create a world where we can live and love and have harmony and peace. And the justice system needs to work, and we need to guide the people through that system. And let us take the first step to do this and work towards the transformation that we want to bring as change. It's furthermore, we just search authorization and across the whole globe of South Africa, people need to stand up and like Brett explained, we need to get the people to see the how can you say it, necessary to vote. All these people that are leaving schools, like he explained, all the older version people are dying, not being rude, but they're passing away. And the younger generation needs to stand up and they need to know what the country is about. They need to see what we are, what the government has brought. If they've 28 years and they've not changed anything, and surely people are only realizing it now. Now they leave the country in a mess, and people in rain now need to sort it out. So we need them to just open their eyes and just support people who want to bring the change. And I'm sure we will bring a light. We'll be that fresh air. And I'm sure people will be glad to support us and walk with us. Brett is very good in statistics. He updates us weekly. And with him on our side and leading the team, the country will definitely see where we're going. I'm sure it will work out for the best, and I just want everybody to be safe and never keep quiet if anything happens. The justice system doesn't work. Make a point of it to get to the news. Make a point of making copies of what's wrong. Get your backup. Like you see that lady in the SAPS who's a whistleblower at the moment. She's in hiding, and I listened to her last night. And it's so sad to see she's got a uniform which she wears with pride, and she can't even go to the police to ask for safety. Why would you live in a country like that? Why would you be scared to go to a police station to get justice and just ask for safety? We want the people to live safe. We want our kids to live in the street again and not live and play in the street and be able to go out at night and be safe and not be mugged. We just want the country to change, be better. That's all.
Yeah, great. Now, look, I want to thank both of you for coming on tonight. And I just want to say, Milissa, that you've got a very good man there as a vice president. I'm talking obviously about Brett. And, he makes a lot of sense when he addresses issues that are raised. And I think that you should use him where possible to basically, get involved in press discussions and stuff like that. I want to thank you both for joining me tonight. And look, we'll be watching Change SA, see how you go. And have a great evening.
Can
Thank you very
I
much.
Yeah, please go ahead, Brett.
Can I-
Yeah,
I just want to have a minute to close. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just feel this so strong,
go ahead.
and I'm sitting here, and I'm just, so much emotion. And the one thing that Nelson Mandela did for this nation, which for me personally stands out, was when the Sport Council, I think it was in '94, when they said we're removing the Springbok from all sport, and Nelson Mandela said to his chauffeur, take me to the Thule house, and he called a meeting. And he said, the one sport that we must retain the Springbok is rugby. And they hated him for it. They said, you have spent too much time with the Afrikaner in prison. You become too sympathetic to them. A lot of them actually turned from him because they were not happy with that decision. And it was the best decision that he ever made for this country. And I'll tell you why. Tomorrow, we have South Africa playing the All Blacks in a repeat of 1995. How ironic is that? That we have a match that unified this country 30 years ago, and we have the same two countries facing each other again for the first time in a final in France months before an election. Isn't that so amazing? And tonight when I was driving around the city centre, I saw black people wearing not just a Springbok top, because they've changed their top so much, they put the Springbok somewhere under the armpit somewhere or something. I saw black people wearing a rugby jersey on the front saying Springbok. It's difficult to find those jerseys because they don't make them like that anymore. They put the Springbok very small, hidden on the jersey. And these are black South Africans proudly wearing a Springbok, loudly displayed on their jerseys. And it was a moment for me. I said to myself, damn it. They try to take this away, and 30 years later, we have a section of the population that should be the one saying, we hate that jersey, wearing it with pride. And, a rugby team cannot win a World Cup unless every player plays together like glue. They bond. You cannot win unless 15 players all have the same goal and they work together. On that field, we are representative of South Africa in terms of racial demographic, and we've won this World Cup 3 times. Tomorrow we could win it for a 4th. And the only reason why we're there is because those players symbolize the potential of South Africa, because they come together on that field, and it's not I'm there and you there and I don't like you because you this color. They are a team. South Africa is essentially a team. And if we can personify the Springbok ethos and staying together as a country united, we can win our political World Cup and change this country. And if Nelson Mandela had listened to the ANC in 1994, we will not be where we are tonight. We will have not won 3 World Cups because the Springbok would have been removed. The fans would have left the stadiums. Players wouldn't have been required to wear the jersey anymore. Where would our sport have been? So what I'm saying is to the country, our team is playing tomorrow in a World Cup. Let us next year in 2024 get on the political field. Put on your political Springbok jersey. Unite as a nation and bring the cup, the political cup, home when the votes are counted.
Brett, I just want to reflect on what you've just been saying, because the thing that pisses me off as an expat South Africa, and it really pisses me off, is that international sport, and I include the Comrades Marathons in that, the one they have in July, Durban to Pietermaritzburg and back. I was a long-distance runner. I grew up in South Africa. But I can't watch that live. A few years ago I could through SATV. But what's happened now is that the Comrades Marathon and the South African, or the Springboks playing the Rugby Cup, has been captured by DSTV. So if you're not paying for DSTV, you can't watch the Comrades Marathon in Australia because you're not on DSTV. You obviously, there are options with the World Rugby Cup, but even that's difficult because these international sports that are so popular and the lifeblood of South Africa have now been captured by DSTV. So people can't watch it live on your normal free-to-air. They've got to actually go out there and pay money to watch what should be available to every citizen of South Africa. That's a big difference between what happened in 1995, where the whole world watched the final, and people in South Africa watched the final, I think, on SATV. Today, they can't. It's been captured by DSTV. That, to me, sucks.
Yeah. Same with the cricket, you know?
Yeah. They've all been captured.
World Cup, yeah.
So anyway, guys, look, I just want to thank you for joining me tonight, and have a great evening. Looks like you're out in the street there, Brett.
Yeah, I'm actually on a close protection detail, and I've just sort of when you guys called, I was on my way back to my base. And I thought, let me jump in here. But then, of course, I was challenged with my phone. I know this shop. It's a very well-known little pucky shop that stays open till late.
Right.
So I thought, let me go and get a cable. And just to let you know, my phone's on 25%.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I've got a good cable, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty.
I've got to change SA cable.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
the South African one away.
I've got to say that I take my hat off to Neil de Beer. He had a very hard year last year, but he's always involved in these little security details that go around at night and catch criminals and so on. So yeah, look, he's doing a fantastic job, and just say hi to him from me when you next catch up.
I will do.
All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. Have a great evening. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us to talk to us about Change SA. And we'll be keeping an eye on you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's talk soon.
Thank you, Brett.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Pleasure.
Bye.
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 All right, guys, that was Change SA, and I was speaking to Melissa and Brett. And Melissa is the president, and Brett is the vice president of the organization, or the party. And just to keep in the mood, seeing that we're talking about South Africa, and seeing that Brett did raise the World Rugby Cup at the end, I'm going to go out with the Rugby South Africa anthem. Okay, you've never seen this one before, but I've been keeping it in abeyance for a night like tonight. And remember, our next live stream will be on Monday evening at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time. And please do register on our own platform, which is lovinglivetv.com, where we cannot be censored by the long arm of YouTube and Google. And yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Alrighty, here comes the Rugby South African anthem. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.
Sapolwayo Morena voluca se chava saisu Ofe disenti toile matrenye Possible che si chava sa Jesu si chava South Africa, Eine blauw van onze Hemel, sounds the call to come together, and united we shall